Sometimes the ones who save our lives don't speak a single word. They simply stay when the whole world walks away. A dying shelter dog refused to leave the hospital parking lot for 17 straight days, until a nurse discovered the heartbreaking reason why he kept staring at one specific window every night. The rain had not stopped for 3 days in Seattle. Cold winds swept through the hospital parking lot, while people rushed inside carrying umbrellas and worries. Nobody noticed the dirty golden-brown dog sleeping beside the emergency entrance, except one nurse. Her name was Emily Carter, a 32-year-old night shift nurse who spent her life caring for strangers while quietly breaking inside herself. Every night at exactly 11:40 p.m., she saw the same dog sitting beneath a flickering parking light. Wet, thin, shivering. But he never barked. He never begged for food. He only stared at the same fourth-floor hospital window. The first night, Emily ignored him. The second night, she left half her sandwich beside the door. The third night, the dog picked up the sandwich and carried it behind the parking structure. That was when Emily followed him. The dog limped through the rain toward an abandoned shed near the hospital property. Inside, Emily froze. An old homeless man lay unconscious on cardboard. His lips were pale blue from the cold. Beside him, the dog gently placed the untouched sandwich near the man's hand. Emily immediately called for help. The old man was rushed into the hospital suffering from pneumonia and heart complications. The dog chased the ambulance the entire way. From that day on, the staff called him Lucky. The old man's name was Walter Jenkins, a retired war veteran who lost everything after his wife died from cancer years earlier. His home, his family, his reason to live. The only thing he still had was Lucky. Walter had found the dog as a starving puppy trapped inside a trash bag during winter. He rescued him and kept him alive. From then on, they survived together. When Walter had no food, Lucky stayed hungry too. When Walter slept under bridges, Lucky curled beside him for warmth. They became each other's only family. Now Walter was fighting for his life upstairs in the ICU. And every night, Lucky waited outside under the rain staring at Walter's hospital window. Security guards tried removing him several times, but he always came back. Soon patients and visitors started noticing him. Some left food. Others left blankets. Photos of Lucky waiting quietly outside spread online. Thousands shared the story. The dog who refuses to abandon his human. But Walter's condition continued getting worse. One evening, Emily overheard doctors saying Walter might not survive the week. That night, she walked outside carrying a warm blanket. Lucky looked weaker now. His ribs showed through his soaked fur. Emily sat beside him on the cold pavement. "You really love him, don't you?" she whispered. Lucky slowly rested his head on her lap. And for the first time in years, Emily cried. Years earlier, Emily had lost her young son in a car accident. Since then, she buried herself in work, avoiding pain and life. But somehow this broken dog reminded her what unconditional love looked like. The next morning, Walter finally woke up. Weakly, he whispered one word. "Lucky." Emily immediately ran outside. When Lucky heard Walter's voice through the phone speaker, his ears lifted. Instantly, his tail began shaking wildly. Doctors made a rare exception. They allowed Lucky inside the hospital room. Lucky sprinted down the hallway despite his injured leg. Nurses stepped aside. Patients cried quietly. And when Lucky jumped gently onto Walter's bed, the old man wrapped trembling arms around him and broke down sobbing. "I thought you left me," Walter whispered. Lucky licked the tears from his face. Over the following weeks, Walter slowly recovered. But Lucky's health suddenly began declining. Years of hunger, cold nights, and illness damaged his body. One afternoon, the veterinarian pulled Emily aside. "He doesn't have much time left." Walter cried for days. He stayed beside Lucky every moment at the animal clinic. Then, during Lucky's final night, Walter whispered something into his ear that nobody else heard. The next morning, Lucky was gone, peacefully. Walter held his paw for nearly an hour without speaking. The story of Lucky spread across the country. People donated enough money to give Walter a small apartment and a second chance at life. Months later, Emily opened a rescue shelter called Lucky's Home. Above the entrance hung a single sentence: "Love stays, even when the world leaves." Every year, on the rainiest night in Seattle, Walter visits the shelter carrying flowers. Not for a human, but for the dog who saved his life. True love is not measured by money, appearance, or words. Sometimes the purest loyalty comes from those who cannot even speak. If an animal loved you this much, would you love them back the same way?